Jonathan, congrats on the film, mate. I really enjoyed watching Nemesis. This was something of a rebirth for you, right? Now under the Shogun umbrella. Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, I guess end of 2019, which seems like a long time ago now because we've all lost a year of our lives. I was kind of getting a bit disenchanted with the film business and thinking, maybe I should do something else, really. I'd just sort of fallen out of love with it, really. And my wife said, you know what, you should give it one more go and see how that goes. And we thought, you know what, new decade, 2020, let's try a new movie, new brands, do all that kind of stuff. And it was all going remarkably well. And then the pandemic hit. Because we were supposed to film in March 2020 and we ended up filming in September. So that was a bit of a, no one saw it coming. And I remember even sort of in February thinking, this is just overblown. It's never going to happen. People are treating this like it's a 70s B movie. And then we lived a 70s B movie for a year. But it was really helpful, and last year it helped sort of build a lot of relationships for me that probably wouldn't have happened without the pandemic, and the dreaded Zoom that we're on now. Really has become an integral part of everyone's sort of business life, I think. So from sort of disaster comes triumph in terms of the pandemic for me, and it's all gone really well. So yes, very happy. Nemesis was very successful, and now we're on to the next one.
Being well received, it got to, was it number 3 in the charts down in Sainsbury's, or?
Yeah, it was 2 or 3 in Sainsbury's and number 2 in Morrison's, and it was the number 1 independent movie in the country. So. Great. That made me very happy.
Mate, well done. And I caught an interview, I forget the gentleman's name, but he actually made a good point of like your local supermarkets are now your kind of VHS or your local tape stores from back in the day. And you can go to these places now and, have a look at films that don't quite hit the top 10 in the box office, but can be more, accessible now for the home front people. And in the interview you described your movies, they could be McDonald's movies or considered McDonald's movies. Do you mind drilling down on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of something like, when you make a movie that's not critically acclaimed, or a lot of movies that aren't critically acclaimed, you kind of analyse why. And obviously a big part of that is snobbery. And, in the same way that people will tell you mustn't ever eat junk food, you must only eat proper food. A little bit of junk food once in a while doesn't do you any harm. So I always say that, if James Bond is fillet steak, I make McDonald's movies. And the old McDonald's doesn't do anyone any harm. And the thing about supermarkets is, obviously you live in central London, and it's a very different world. But outside of the cities, the big grocers, the huge out-of-town superstores, DVD is still an important component in what they offer people. I doubt in central London you could even buy a DVD anymore. HMV on Oxford Street's gone. It's sad for me, very, very sad, because I still enjoy buying physical stuff. One of my frustrations is that we don't get Blu-rays of my films because they just don't sell enough to justify it. But on DVD, they do.
How does that work with Blu-ray then? I mean, is there a magic number that you need to hit? I mean, how do you have to apply for it?
It's not so much a magic number, it's more the market. I mean, I think of the grocers, only Tesco's has a Blu-ray chart now. The others don't even stock them at all. And HMV is a minimal part of my business. People go to HMV to buy Blu-rays, box sets, sort of collector's items, and my stuff doesn't really qualify for that. So, HMV will do phenomenal business on a box set of recolored Doctor Who episodes from the 60s, but my films will sell 2 copies there. Whereas in the grocers, Doctor Who won't get the shelf space, but we will.
Right. But it's such a shame because, I mean, you have so many extras on the DVD as well. I mean, you have kind of all these little nice avenues and add-ons like the stickers and the books.
Yeah,
like you can have that.
That was a deliberate choice with the DVD. I just thought, everyone thinks that physical is struggling, and it is. It's not anything like what it was, and the digital makes up for it. So we thought, if people are going to commit and purchase a physical thing, the least we can do is give them some extras. So there's a making of documentary, a couple of deleted scenes. Obviously we're putting all this together in the pandemic, so we would have liked to have done a commentary and all those kind of things, but that didn't happen. But certainly next time we'll make the physical home end release even more kind of collectors-y.
Yeah, and for the people on YouTube that are looking, this is the DVD. Great cover. Go buy it, you minge bags. Jonathan, talk to me a little bit about the style and how you managed to accrue some costumes for what is essentially a low budget movie. How do you go about that?
Yeah, well, obviously, it's kind of one of my interests, and I just didn't want to make a British gangster movie. The difference between American gangster movies and English gangster movies is the American ones always wear beautiful clothes, and the English ones always wear tracksuits. And I didn't want to make a tracksuit movie. I didn't want to make a movie with a load of people in Reebok in a strip club in Essex shouting at each other. You know, I wanted to do something a little bit more stylish. And obviously we've got the Lear jets and the Rolls Royces and all those kind of things in it. And because, you know, obviously I've written this book that's coming out soon, the German Street shirt, I have these quite good relationships with all the brands on German Street. So I knocked on a few doors, and Hilditch and Key in particular were very helpful. Steve Miller there kindly gave us all of Billy's clothes. So Billy is head to toe Hilditch and Key. There's a wonderful cufflink shop in one of the arcades there called Deacon and Francis. They gave us cufflinks for Billy and for Bruce Payne. Billy has skulls with diamonds for eyes and the mouth drops down. And Bruce has great white sharks, which is terrific. And Bruce's cravat, if you can see it in the film, is black with a red skull and crossbones from New Lingwood.
Nice, they're really nice.
You know, and Bruce was a wonderful actor to work with because he really cares about everything, and he really wanted the costume to be just right. And you know, we got the cigars from James J. Fox and all that kind of stuff, and he was really had a lot of input into that, and it was really nice. So I suppose essentially I was the unofficial costume designer as well.
And do you then have to determine certain shots to get these products in? I noticed when Ambra Moore, who I'll ask you a bit more about later, comes in and has a meeting with Billy Murray before the dinner, and he's getting the gun from the drawer. You can have a nice angled shot of the crossbone, the skull cufflinks. So do you now have to think, well, I've got the product, I need to kind of pay a little bit of lip service, let's make sure that we get some of these in?
No, to be honest, it might sound, yeah, it should be that cynical, you're right. I mean, no, they were just so cool we kept that shot in. You know, it's such a cool, the mouth opening on the skull, and we thought it was kind of a portent of doom type thing. Unfortunately, Bruce's cufflinks, which are probably even cooler, you can't really see in the finished cut. So no, it's not a deliberate choice. I mean, you know, they don't pay us. It's not like Omega paying for watches or stuff. They just very kindly lend them to us. So right. You know, it was great. But we tried to make it work. But I think everyone should be happy with how it looks. And I think it is a stylish looking movie. And I think the poster artwork that you just showed on the DVD is a bit more stylish than the usual kind of British movie. You know, we've tried to make it look as sort of international as possible.
Yeah, and it looks great, mate. And I think I said offline that it looks like you put the money on screen, whatever budget you had. It certainly looked good whilst I was watching it. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, there are a few blink and you miss it moments. I mean, just like that cufflink moment that I said, but it does have like other ties in the drawer. And for people, I think like you and me, who really look out for style moments in films, you know, like the tailoring moments, or when someone gets a shirt out of the closet, we're all kind of trying to drill down and have a look at a label or something.
When he pulls the drawer open and there's a load of ties in it, they're all mine.
Really?
All the ones I happen to have on set in my bag, yeah. So.
Okay. So, I mean, you like being producer, tell me, like, where does the line stop for you? I mean, like, how much of it is the director's film? And I mean, you're the costume designer, like you say. I mean, you have a hand in the script with the ideas. Are you kind of like a doctor on call permanently throughout the film?
No, I think it's more a case of, in a film like this, it depends on the filmmaker that you're working with. You know, if you have a strong director who brings a vision to it and is very clear on what they want, then as a producer, it's your job to support them. But sometimes you have to kind of drive the car and leave the director to sort of point the camera and tell the actors where to stand. And Nemesis is definitely a film that I was very personally involved in. You know, I mean, Billy and I cooked up the idea together. I wrote it with Adam, the writer. I cast it. I found all the locations, the costumes, everything. I was very, very hands-on with this one. And I think with my films, what I find is if I put the work in, then it's reflected on screen. If I pop down for lunch in a long coat, it never happens.
I mean, you were quite close to directing this film, you said as well. How close do you think you'll be to directing a film in the future, do you reckon?
No, it's not something I wanted to do. It's one of those things kind of born of necessity. You know, it's no great desire. In the same way that, you know, I have no desire to do like extra parts in them, cameos. People go, oh, you did a cameo in it. Yeah, because we didn't have enough bodies to fill the tables. and I happen to have a dinner jacket. That's kind of some extent of that. I'd rather just keep busy behind the scenes and get on with it. No, you can either direct or produce. I don't think you can do both. So I'd rather stick to being a producer.
Okay. And some of the actors in the film are, I mean, people that have seen the film already know, but you've got the likes of Billy Murray, like you said, Nick Moran's in it. I mean, Julian Glover turns up, and that means so people that are into Bond, like we've got our toes firmly in the Bond community. There's a lot for Bond fans, isn't there?
Yeah, and Julian was great. That was the first scene that we shot on the first day, and we shot it in Mayfair. And, you know, I mean, Julian's an older guy, and we were right in the midst of the pandemic, and he came and did it, and he was terrific. And he wore his Garrett Club tie and, you know, looked very dapper. And it's a funny one with him, because we've actually done 2 movies together before, but never met. So I did one called Airborne with him in 2010 or 11, and I wasn't in that day. And then he did a little bit in We Still the Old Way. And again, I wasn't there that day. So it was lovely to actually finally meet him. And he's a delightful man. He was absolutely besotted with my wife, which was very amusing. And but he really set the tone nicely. You know, having a big Hollywood legend like that come in and sort of do the first scene so powerfully was terrific. So it was wonderful. I'm so glad. And, you know, For Your Eyes Only is one of my favourite Bonds. So it was particularly good to have him in.
And did you get a chance to talk to him about that, or do you kind of not have the time to shoot the breeze?
Well, he was delighted that Ambra was in it, you know, because obviously he loved Roger. I think he did a stint with Roger as well. They'd certainly known each other for a very long time. But she wasn't there that day. But he was really happy, and Julian really enjoys being Julian Glover. You know, he really likes the support and the appreciation that people give him for all those roles. The only thing he told me that was really funny is that when he did Indiana Jones, you know, he did the American accent, and Spielberg said to him, "You're going to work in America for 20 years non-stop. You're such a good accent. People are going to hire you as American." I've never worked in America since.
That's fascinating. But it was a good accent, though.
Great accent, yeah.
I mean, terrifying. I mean, still at the end of that, where like his end, I should say, is pretty grim. But why he didn't give the cup to Harrison Ford to try first? Just say, look, you know, there's quite a few cups here, mate. Why don't you just try this one, and then we'll see how it works out for you. Anyway, going off the grass. Talk to me about Ambra Moore. I thought Ambra was really good in this, and how did that come about?
Well, Ambra is a sweetheart. I mean, I've known her for a long time. Her father, Jeffrey, is one of my best friends. And, you know, she was really serious about wanting to be an actress. And, you know, very good. She studied it. Obviously, she'd done that, the movie that she and Jeffrey produced, you know, for UNICEF, You and I. The Winner Isn't, that's what it was called, the Oscar song. And she was serious. And the thing is, you know, people will say, oh, it's nepotism, you know, she's got this surname, so you just want to cash in on that. But the thing I've found in all the years doing this is that having a famous surname is as much of a disadvantage as it is an advantage, because everyone wants to meet you, but not everyone wants to cast you. Yeah. And I thought, you know what, she's really good. Why don't we just give her an opportunity? And she delivered brilliantly, and she was fantastic. And, you know, the ultimate professional. Everyone loved working with her. She was so sweet and just terrific. You know, really nice young lady. She kind of gives you hope for the future.
I'll tell you something that I had that I've only just thought. This overarching feeling of relief that the film was not only great, but she was great as well, because I knew I'd be talking to you about it afterwards. And I was thinking, God, I hope the film's good, because otherwise it's going to be a pretty hard chat. And I hope she's good. Otherwise, I'm just going to be watching her, like really rooting for her, and then it's not going to come off. But I can just say that she was terrific, and the film.
Yeah, she's really. I mean, look, one of the things about making these independent movies is it's very easy to be let down by the supporting performances. And the one thing I'm really proud of with Nemesis is that every actor in it is on the money. You know, there's not one weak performance. There's not someone who hasn't thought about it. I mean, you know, Bruce Payne really did commit to his one day on our movie, like he was doing a whole movie for Tarantino. And it's great when you work with professionals. I love people who care.
Yeah. Bruce Payne is great. I think I've spoken to you about how you'll always be the bad dude from Passenger 77. It's such a great film. I think that was even on the other day. It was halfway through. I just sat down and watched it all, as in watched the rest of it.
It's one of the great action movies, of course.
And also sidetracking over to Billy Murray, who also is obviously really great in this. Never really did US films. I mean, like he did the Dolph Lundgren and Cuba Gooding Jr. film. But do you think, is there a reason for that? Do you know? Because you're quite close to Billy. Is there a regret?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think he had a young family and a wife, and he didn't want to uproot them and take them to LA. There was definitely a moment when he could have done it. You know, we see obviously during the film, we see all these old clips from the Bill, and you know, I mean, it really pulled me up the other day, and I take Billy for granted sometimes because he's like family. He's not really like a famous actor to me. But he said, oh, you know, when I did the Bill, I was 55. And I said, you what? You were 55? You look about 38. I think at that moment, had he gone to LA, he would absolutely have had a career in American films because he's such a good actor, so handsome, so charismatic. He really has got all of the pieces. But it's also, you know, I see it on a kind of weekly basis that the impact he made on The Bill, which hasn't been on TV for 15 years, 20 years, is phenomenal. He cannot go out anywhere without someone going, you're that guy off The Bill.
Yeah.
And that's like a real resonance to last in people's memories that long. And I think it's easy to go, yeah, what if? But he had an amazing career anyway.
Yeah.
Definitely one of the top TV actors in this country. So I don't think he should have any regrets. And also, he did do the voice in the Call of Duty games, which is a whole different sort of thing, and that's an American project. And and like you say, the Dolph Lundgren movie, although I think that was shot in Romania or somewhere. I was on holiday with him when he got the call to do that, and they said come to Bucharest or wherever it was to do this film with Dolph Lundgren and Cuba Gooding Jr. I said, do it. That's such a cool thing to do.
Yeah.
And he really enjoyed it, and he and Cuba Gooding Jr. actually became quite good friends.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, that's good to know. I always like knowing that actors are friends with other actors, no matter how obscure. I always imagine this nice cozy WhatsApp group going on between Danny DeVito and Billy Murray. I think, what are they talking about?
That's really weird you say that, because Billy and I actually met Danny DeVito once.
Where was that?
In the Soho Hotel in London. He was in there doing a junket or something, and Billy went up and had this. I've got this brilliant photograph of him, because DeVito is actually really, like, he's tinier than you think even, and Billy's maybe 5'9", and he kind of towers over him. So, yeah, but he was such a nice man, such a charming, proper, like, down to earth guy. And they were having a chat about Call of Duty in LA and all that kind of stuff. It was great.
Tell me, what's next for you, please, Jonathan? We've got, I hear rumours of Renegades. Can you drill down on that? What's that about?
We're doing a movie called Renegades, which is an action movie, vigilante movie. So essentially it's a group of old Special Forces soldiers. One of their mates, who's a Green Beret, gets murdered in London, and they sort of band together to avenge him. And the Green Beret who gets murdered is Lee Majors. And two of the other old soldiers are Ian Ogilvy and Billy Murray. We haven't cast the third one yet. We're casting the movie literally right now. That's going to shoot in June. And we've got a lovely cast: Danny Trejo, Patsy Kensit, Michael Pare. Really, really nice cast, really good, and great director. My American partner, Daniel Zarilli, who's one of the top action guys in the world. So yeah, really excited for that.
I've wondered this as well. With your film, it does feel like a family in terms of you have a lot of the same actors. You're friends with, like you say, Billy Murray. You don't even really see him as like a megastar anymore. When you do a new film and it comes to casting, do you then cast someone and then have to apologize to several other mates and actors for not putting them in the films?
No, I think the thing is, it's like, because my movies don't take very long to shoot, no one feels like they're missing out on 6 months of work.
Right. Okay.
So, and also because I'm quite prolific, it's like if you miss one, there's going to be another one coming around fairly soon.
Okay.
It's kind of like if you miss a bus in Clapham, there'll be another one along in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So no, not really. I mean, we've got a thing at the minute, a script, a very hot script, which is a bit different. It's about youth crime, and there's one great role in it, like a truly, truly, truly great role. And a lot of actors, the director and I know, are desperate to do it, because it's one of those parts that is a real gift for an actor. Right. We're having to kind of sit on our hands and not tell them they can't do it at the minute, because we've aimed very high. So I think I've said that diplomatically enough that no one will actually know what I'm talking about. But nonetheless, it does happen. But if you're genuinely friends with people rather than just show business friends, it's just work, isn't it? It's I'm always aware that I'm very lucky to make a living out of my hobby, really. So
right.
It's all just fun and games.
That's cool. Well, yeah, because I've been watching a lot of Tarantino films of late, and I often think, does he have to call up Samuel L. Jackson and say, sorry, Sam, you're not going to be in the next one, but don't worry, I do have one plan for you in the future, because he always sticks to the same people as well, and how they must feel at the end when, like, either they get their scene cut or they just don't get the invite to be in the film in the first place. Must be a...
Yeah, it is different. I mean, there's an actor I love working with called Johnny Palmiero. In Nemesis, he's the guy that Billy blows up in the car. Yes. And this was his 9th movie for me, in 10 years. So he's kind of like a part of the furniture. I like that. I like this kind of rep company. Growing up on Bond and Hammer and Carry On and all those movies, you see that sort of family atmosphere that's fostered. But also, I think it's comforting to see the same people. People enjoy that. And it's important to remember, you just held up the Nemesis DVD, and those 5 faces on the cover, they have to be ones that people recognize. Otherwise, people don't buy it. It's still, my kind of movies are still star driven. The big Hollywood CGI stuff, it's a different thing, because they're all about existing IPs and brands and comics and CGI and all that kind of stuff. But for us, it's all about good actors. And I think what makes my film stand out maybe from some of the others is the quality of the actors. Yeah.
No, I totally agree. Jonathan, thanks so much for taking time out on a Sunday, mate, for coming on the show. Excited, tangentially, excited for No Time to Die at all?
Yeah, it's a new Bond movie. I mean, I'm curious to see what it's like. I hope it's his last one. Um, but I worry for them. Especially if they push it back again, because it's going to date. I mean, the technology is definitely going to date in it. But I think the one thing about Bond is, whether you like the incumbent Bond or not, it is a proper theatrical experience. And I absolutely agree with them sticking with their guns to keep it theatrical.
Great. Yeah, no, I agree as well. And the Mission Impossible's got kicked back till May now, as we're recording. Top Gun, I think we knew was going to get kicked back, so that'll be in November. Do you, like, being in the vocation that you're in, do you see any potential Bond actors, perhaps, because Bonds always typically get cast as unknowns, perhaps not Roger Moore and the likes, but like some Bonds will come through the woodwork and we'll be like, oh, I've never heard of him. You being on the inside of these sort of things, have you got any inklings or any potential tips?
I don't think we'll ever be an unknown again. And really the only one that was completely unknown was Lazenby. I mean, Roger was a big star, Pierce Brosnan was a big star, albeit in TV, but that's still a big, a huge audience. And Daniel Craig wasn't known. Layer Cake had a big impact, and everyone paid attention to that movie. He had a similar vibe in that to the one that Tom Hardy had in Bronson. So yeah, people were looking. I wouldn't be surprised, and there's no insider information there at all. I wouldn't be surprised if this is the last one. If I had that IP, I would be looking to sell it to Disney and roll out a whole load of Netflix type shows or Disney Plus shows. Moneypenny, all those kind of things. That would be the logical thing for me, because the huge changes that people seem to want to make in Bond, I don't think it lends itself to Bond anymore. So stop it being a James Bond movie and open it up into a Bond universe. That's kind of what I would think, because people, are really jumping on this thing of, Bond has to be this now, and he has to be that now, and he has to be the other. And actually he doesn't. And if he is that much of a dinosaur, leave him in the past and focus on all the other characters, because there's such a wealth of material there to play with. So yeah, I don't know how long it can go on for, really. And I noticed in the last one, and from the look of what we've seen of No Time to Die in this one, it is becoming more of an ensemble. It isn't just Bond as much as it was. And I think that's maybe pointing a way forward. And I think trying to reinvigorate a franchise after Daniel Craig, who, look, whether I like him or not as Bond, has been very successful, is a hell of a task. And I know people say, oh, this one and that one, and Henry Cavill and all that, but there's no one that I immediately think, yes, that's the guy. Yeah. But maybe that's just because the franchise has kind of fallen off my radar a bit. I mean, to me, they're becoming increasingly less what I look for in James Bond and more sort of generic action movies.
I'd be interested in seeing how the universe would work, who they would pick as individual characters to spearhead that. Like, you'd have Han Solo doing Star Wars, or Obi-Wan doing Star Wars. Which one would come first, for example? Is there someone that you would go, right, if you had the choice and they said to you, pick one?
Oh, M Imperial. Yeah. I mean, and the one thing about Daniel Craig era that I really love is Ralph Fiennes as M. I think he's terrific. I mean, he's more Bond than Bond. But I think he's great. I think that would be really, really cool. I think they could do a show on Spectre. There's so many things they could do with all that IP. And it will be a clever way of doing it. And also the budgets that you see now in all these Netflix shows would support it.
Yeah. I've got an idea that I had whilst running the other day, and I'll pitch it over to you, Jonathan, and maybe you can run with it, or you can just leave it to the side. It's called, because I was thinking, how could it work? Like, which universe would you want? Would you want M? I came up with a perfect solution. It's Daniel Craig has fallen, right? So Daniel Craig is playing himself a bit like being John Malkovich. John Malkovich played himself. And he's going to the premiere of his next big blockbuster. But of course, terrorists have taken over the Royal Albert Hall, and they're holding everyone hostage. But Gerard Butler is there with Daniel Craig, and these two kind of buddy up. Gerard Butler's like playing who he has played in White House Has Fallen. Yeah, exactly. So he's playing the character, whereas Daniel Craig's playing himself. And the two of them kind of buddy up. And Daniel Craig's a bit wimpish because he's an actor in real life. He's not like the superhero Bond. So you kind of have to, his bodyguard is Gerard Butler, and then they overturn things. So yeah, I didn't really flesh it out beyond that.
No, it's kind of a drink in a pub gone horribly wrong, that, isn't it? Except not more, obviously. But yeah, I don't know. You know, I don't think anyone knows what they'll do. And I think, you know, when you read all the books about the history of the Bonds and all that kind of stuff, it has always, it's not like they've never had a long-term game plan. You know, I think like even by the time Broccoli and Saltzman were falling out, they were still going, Jesus, how are we still getting away from this? 5 movies in. Can you imagine it? 5 movies? You know, there's no way when they made Doctor No that they thought this was going to be going 50, 60 years later. And I think the one thing about Bond is that the idea survives. You know, it survived an actor in the 60s who had zero interest in it, and who hated it and publicly slammed it. I mean, you know, can you imagine a movie star now who really was kind of resentful of their franchise? Then a complete unknown non-actor who played the role in a really good movie that was, you know, greeted with bad will. Then an established persona who brought his established persona to the character, and essentially, you know, in the 70s and 80s, Bond became Roger Moore, you know, in the nicest possible way. And then you had a great actor. I mean, for me, Timothy Dalton is the best actor out of all of them, who never quite was a movie star. You know, everything changes. Every curveball that the world throws at it, it adapts to somehow. You know, and the only time I've ever found that they've upset the apple cart is when they got rid of Pierce Brosnan and brought in Daniel Craig, which I've never really understood. But you know, we never know. We will never know what goes on behind the scenes.
Never know. Well, we do know that Timothy Dalton doesn't return any fan mail because he lives in Chiswick. He's just down a few rows down the road from me. My postman gave me his address, but he's so I wrote a letter to him and I put one of those Timothy Dalton stamps on because they released all the Bond stamps.
Right.
So I made sure that his face was on the stamp.
You shouldn't have written Schmidt Spionum on the letter.
Oh yeah, damn it! That's missed a trick on that one. But yeah, he who knows? Maybe he's moved.
You know what? I met Dalton. I met him at the screening of Penny Dreadful. You know that show he did for Sky.
Oh yeah.
And it was a weird thing because obviously Timothy Dalton, megastar, and there were Eva Green was there and Billie Piper was there, and there was huge crowds around the girls. And Dalton was stood in the corner with his partner, wife, a lady. And I went up and introduced myself and said how much I enjoyed him in the show because I thought he was terrific in it, and what a great Bond he was. That's why I wrote an article about him for GQ because he was so nice. The most humble, unassuming, charming man. Had a drink with him in the bar afterwards. Wow. Not what I expected at all because he always has this kind of slightly standoffish reputation. But no, he was charming and really flattered. And what a handsome, charismatic man. You know, I'd love to work with him. He's the Bond who's on my list to work with. Absolutely.
Well, I'll give you his address. And we'll put a request in. We'll leave the stamp off this time. Jonathan, quickly before you go, how's the book? The Jermaine Street book. Any news on that?
Yeah, it's great. So it's out in June. I've just finished all the proofing and all that kind of stuff. Published by the History Press, available in all good bookshops and online and all the rest of it. You know, and hopefully we can do this again when it's sort of a physical thing that we can hold.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah, and Jonathan Sothcott on Twitter. What's your Twitter handle? Give yourself a plug there, Jonathan.
My Twitter is @Sothcott. My Instagram is @Jonathan Sothcott. I don't like Instagram much, but I do like Twitter. Yeah.
And Nemesis is out, everyone. I strongly recommend getting the DVD, but also streaming if you can't get down to a shop at the moment. Thanks so much for your time, Jonathan.
Thanks, Peter. Appreciate it.
Mate. See you soon, mate. Bye-bye.